evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. A Loudoun County School Board member involved in several controversies is resigning. She allegedly tried to dox parents who oppose critical race theory and pushed forward with a transgender bathroom policy despite parent protests. Some closure to a Florida tragedy. A shooter who killed over a dozen people at a high school there 3 years ago plans to plead guilty, but his sentence is yet to be determined. The Department of State is offering a reward of up to $2 million for a Pakistani human smuggler. He's said to have successfully smuggled Afghans and Pakistanis over the U.S. border for the last 6 years. New York's governor signs a bill into law. She says it's supposed to shield illegal immigrants from coercion and extortion. The Marine officer who openly criticized military leadership over the withdrawal of Afghanistan attended his sentencing hearing today, and the Marine's attorney said the sentencing was fair. Key members of the Loudoun County School Board is resigning. She's currently facing a recall petition by parents. And the school board is also facing a lawsuit over how it dealt with an alleged case of sexual assault at school.
Beth Bartz, a member of the Loudoun County School Board in Virginia, said in a Facebook post on Friday that she's resigning. She didn't explain why, but wrote, "This was not an easy decision or a decision made in haste. After much thought and careful consideration, it is the right decision for me and my family." In recent months, Loudoun County has been ground zero for parent protests against progressive school policies, such as critical race theory and transgender bathrooms. And Bartz has been involved in several controversies as a school board member. A parent group called Fight for Schools alleges that Bartz was involved in a Facebook group that tried to dox parents opposing critical race theory. Parents started a recall petition against Bartz and 4 other school board members. Last week, a Virginia judge rejected Bart's motion to dismiss the recall. Another controversy involved an alleged case of sexual assault in May. Scott Smith, a local parent, says his 15-year-old daughter was raped in the women's restroom at school by a boy claiming to be gender fluid. After transferring to another school, the same boy allegedly was charged with sexual battery after inappropriately touching another 15-year-old. The sheriff's office is currently investigating, and the Smith family is now suing the school district. Despite parents like Smith speaking out against the transgender restroom policy, the school board approved the policy in August. It would allow transgender students to use bathrooms and locker rooms according to the gender they identify with. Bartz became a board member last year, and she will officially leave the school board on November 2nd.
The man who allegedly killed 17 people at a Florida high school in 2018 plans to plead guilty to the murders. Lawyers for Nikolas Cruz made the announcement today, with the plea expected next week. And now the man faces a trial to determine his sentence. Cruz also pleaded guilty to attacking a jail guard. NTD's Kevin Hogan has the details.
Attempted aggravated battery on a law enforcement officer with a deadly weapon. How do you wish to plead?
I plead guilty.
A South Florida community now has closure after attorneys announced Nikolas Cruz will plead guilty to the murders of 14 students and 3 staff members at a Parkland, Florida high school. His decision to plead guilty comes unexpectedly, and Mitch and Anika Dworet were the only victims' parents at the hearing. They said, "We want justice. It's time." By that, they mean they want the death sentence.
Sir, how old are you?
I am 23 years old.
And how far did you get in school?
I got to 11th grade.
Do you read and write the English language?
Yes, ma'am.
Cruz's lawyers offered to plead guilty in hopes of getting life in prison without the possibility for parole. But prosecutors refused. They said he deserved the death sentence, and Cruz's lawyers may be able to tell the jury when they determine his sentence that since he accepted responsibility and pleaded guilty, he saved the victim's family an additional phase of the trial. That's according to a former Florida prosecutor. On Valentine's Day in 2018, Cruz arrived on the campus of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in an Uber. In a stairwell, he assembled an AR-15 rifle he had bought, then opened fire, and afterwards blended in with his victims as police stormed the building. They caught him an hour later walking through a residential neighborhood. He reportedly had been a troubled student, and his mother worried about his emotional state.
Do you suffer from any physical or mental illness?
I was told in the past, but I don't believe I have any issues.
And the day after the shooting, community members of the Fort Lauderdale area held a vigil for the victims. Soon after, student activists created March for Our Lives and rallied hundreds of thousands around the nation for tighter gun laws. And Florida enacted a new law in which an armed guard must be on campuses during class hours. The judge hopes that the sentencing trial will start in January after a jury is picked in November. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller was sentenced today. The judge docked $5,000 of Scheller's pay, and he will receive a letter of reprimand for criticizing how military leaders handled the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Scheller's attorney says he thinks the sentencing was fair. The Secretary of the Navy will decide if Scheller will receive an honorable discharge or a general discharge under honorable conditions. And the Department of State is offering up to $2 million in rewards for information about a Pakistani who runs a human smuggling network. He's accused of smuggling undocumented Pakistanis and Afghans into the United States. NTD's Jason Perry spoke with an immigration and national security expert to see why the State Department is offering such a high reward.
The Department of State is offering a reward of up to $1 million for information leading to the arrest and/or conviction of Pakistani national Abid Ali Khan. An additional $1 million is offered for information to help stop the financing of his human smuggling network. Khan is the alleged leader of a network that smuggles Pakistanis, Afghans, and other Middle Easterners into the U.S. through the southern border. Khan has been doing that quite successfully for the last 6 years. Todd Bensman, a senior national security fellow for the Center for Immigration Studies, says for the State Department to offer such a high reward shows that they're very concerned about who is coming across the border.
I believe that when, we look at the example of Europe, when you had mass migration like this in 2015, ISIS purposefully sent operatives in with the refugees and war asylum seekers, camouflaging their operatives right over the borders. And they conducted the Paris attacks. They conducted the Brussels attacks.
He says with hundreds of thousands of migrants coming to America's southern border, our Border Patrol is forced to leave the front line to perform babysitting and processing duties for the surge of migrants. And this has left hundreds of miles of unsecured border.
So in those kind of circumstances, all bets are off. You can have Afghans cross the border and run, never be caught. You could have them cross in and claim asylum and just say, my name is Mickey Mouse. Nobody ever has identification.
Bensman also says that ever since Afghanistan fell to the Taliban, there has been a surge of Afghans fleeing their country to Pakistan, where the Khan network is operating.
I think American Homeland Security people are looking at what happened in Europe and looking at our border and just getting nervous about it. And I'm nervous too.
He says the idea is to blow up the bridge that connects Afghanistan and Pakistan to Texas, and guys like Khan are that bridge. He recommends that those who want to know more about the threat of terrorism coming across our southern border to check out his book, America's Covert Border War, The Untold Story of the Nation's Battle to Prevent Jihadist Infiltration. Jason Perry, NTD News.
New York's a hub, a bastion, and a sanctuary for immigrants. And the state's governor recently signed a bill into law that's supposed to shield them from coercion. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on what this means.
New York's coercion laws have been updated. In a statement, Governor Kathy Hochul said the new law will protect New Yorkers from bad actors who use extortion or coercion due to their immigration status. Criminal attorney Elizabeth Crotty tells me this expansion will make it clear to prosecutors that this is a crime.
All right, so how does this new law that Governor Hochul passed change the old law?
Well, it doesn't actually change the law at all. What it does is it expands the law. So they're under two theories of prosecution. One under coercion. There's 10 different ways that you can have coercion, 9 different ways currently that you can have coercion as per the statute. This is the 10th way that you can have coercion. So compelling a person to turn over property or being compelled to act because somebody's going to say, if you don't do what I ask you to do or do what I say you do, I'm going to out your immigration status. So that can be part of the coercion.
But could people freely coerce illegal immigrants in this way before without criminal consequences? The law currently says a person is guilty of coercion if they tie their demand with a threat to accuse some person of a crime.
So you could maybe make it out, but I think that this explicitly spells it out. I mean, I think, these cases are how crimes are charged to cases are very fact specific. And I think before you had you could kind of probably make out a coercion or you could kind of make out a grand larceny, but it was tangential. And I think now it makes it very explicit.
The law takes effect in a few weeks. Miguel Moreno, NTD News, New York.
The FDA's vaccine advisory panel voted unanimously today to recommend a booster shot for all adults in the U.S. who received the single-shot Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine. As of October 14th, over 15 million Americans have gotten the J&J shot. Approximately 9,000 participants in J&J trials have gotten a second shot, though safety and effectiveness data was only submitted on a fraction of that number. Trial data showed that a booster lifted the effectiveness of the vaccine from 70% against all symptomatic disease to 94%. Data showed no indication that adverse events were higher after the second dose. That's according to the company. The FDA did not independently review most of the data. The agency claimed there was not enough time. And starting November 8th, visitors from any country can enter the U.S., but they must be fully vaccinated against COVID-19. This applies to both air and travel and land and sea crossings from Mexico and Canada. White House Assistant Press Secretary Kevin Munoz says this policy is guided by public health, stringent and consistent. But he did not elaborate on travel restrictions for children who are not eligible for the vaccines. The Trump administration put a travel ban on certain countries at the beginning of the pandemic. Foreigners traveling from 33 countries, including China and most European nations, are currently not allowed to enter the U.S. The U.S. also banned non-essential travel across land and sea borders with Mexico and Canada in March of last year. After over a year and a half, the land and sea crossings will be open to fully vaccinated travelers as well. And many people quit their jobs during the pandemic, but some predict many of these workers will boomerang right back to their old jobs. NTD's Phil Zhou has the story.
An associate management professor at Texas A&M University predicted the Great Resignation when many people quit their jobs during the pandemic, and is still going on as a record 4 million people resigned from their jobs in August alone.
I would say don't quit a job unless you have something to go to.
Employers are not able to fill positions because employees just do not need their jobs. They've gotten the upper hand, if you will, on the job market.
Now that same professor is coining a new term, boomerang employees, who will eventually return to their old jobs. Chuck Simikian has been in the HR industry for over 25 years, and he agrees.
They're gone, they're out swinging around, getting experience, trying other things, and they are ready to come back.
Simikian says there are many benefits to bringing back a former employee.
Employers are going to want to bring back people that they know, that they feel comfortable with, because recruiting and training are huge expenses.
But HR business partner Shannon Curtis over at Employers Advantage has seen otherwise.
They're changing for better pay, better benefits offerings, and the opportunity to remote work if that's a possibility. So I have not seen many people return to their old jobs.
But Curtis says while workers have the upper hand now, the playing field might level out.
I would encourage employers and employees to think long-term and not be short-sighted. So it's easy to go for the quick fix or the quick compensation increase, but take a deep breath to think long-term so our decisions aren't so immediate and short-lived.
Phil Zhou, NTD News.
Crude oil surpassed $82 a barrel in trading today. That's the highest it's been in 7 years. It's a remarkable turnaround for a commodity that was trading at negative prices less than 18 months ago. Rising prices are being felt at the pumps. According to AAA, the national average price for a gallon of gas is $3.30. At this time last year, it was $2.18. And the Texas House has passed the transgender sports bill. It would require public school students to compete in sports based on their biological sex at birth. The bill is now in the Senate, and it's one step closer to becoming law. The House approved the bill 76-54 Thursday night after almost 10 hours of debate. This was the fourth attempt by Texas lawmakers to pass such a measure. 3 similar bills got stalled in the House earlier this year. But the Senate, which is controlled by Republicans, is expected to pass this one. This bill defines biological sex as a student's sex shown on the birth certificate at or around the time of birth. It will not accept legally modified birth certificates, although the body that governs school sports in Texas currently accepts them. Supporters say this measure would help protect girls and make girls' sports fair. Opponents say the bill would hurt transgender athletes. And now to the UK. Conservative Member of Parliament Sir David Amess has died after being stabbed multiple times during a meeting with constituents. Sir David represented South End West for many years and was previously the MP for a town in England. NTD's Jane Werrell brings us more.
Conservative MP Sir David Amess was stabbed multiple times at around midday today. Medics tried to save him where he was stabbed in a church in Essex where he was meeting constituents, but he died. The 69-year-old leaves behind his wife and 5 children, and he served as an MP for 38 years. Essex police say a 25-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of murder, and they've recovered a knife on the scene. They're not looking for anyone else connected with the incident. Sir David was killed in Leigh-on-Sea, a small seaside village in Essex, where he was meeting constituents. The attack has come not just as a shock for the local community, but also for the Parliament, bringing memories of the murder of Joe Cox, a Labour MP, in 2016. Tributes have been pouring in from MPs, including from the Prime Minister.
David was a man who believed passionately in this country and in its future, and we've lost today a fine public servant and a much loved friend and colleague, and our thoughts are very much today with his wife, his children and his family.
Flags at Downing Street have been lowered at half-mast as a sign of respect. Jane Werrell, NTD News, London.
Coming up, New York City is trying to get rid of its graffiti. Mayoral candidates say vandalism can ultimately lead to violent crime. More here on NTD News in just a moment. An Indianapolis police officer has been criminally charged for stomping on a suspect's head, all caught on body camera video. NTD's Miguel Moreno has the details.
It hurts me to see any of our officers treat someone the way that you're going to see here shortly.
Randall Taylor is police chief at Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. He's referring to Sergeant Eric Huxley. The sergeant was charged with felony official misconduct and felony battery after he stomped on a suspect's head during an arrest. You can see Huxley walk up to and stomp on Jermaine Vaughn, the handcuffed man, in the video. Viewer discretion is advised.
Anymore, you understand that? Lean back. You don't really care what you do anymore. Lean back. I'll lean back with the you hold my belt. Look, we're not gonna do this, right? We're not gonna do this, right? Stop. You're done. You're done. You're done.
Officer Shane Foley says the chief learned of this incident last week, but it happened on September 24th.
Again, Sergeant Huxley is suspended without pay, pending a recommendation of termination to the IMPD Civilian Police Merit Board.
In other words, Huxley could lose his job. Chief Taylor says he understands people will be upset.
My apology not only goes out to the men and women of IMPD that do it right, but every other law enforcement officer in this state and in this country Because I know these videos, when they're seen, there's going to be people that are going to say, that's what they're all like. Well, let me tell you, that's not what they're all like.
The force said Vaughn was arrested for disorderly conduct and suffered moderate injuries. The investigation is underway. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio is praising the city's effort to remove graffiti. But both mayoral candidates say the graffiti is dangerous and there's still a long way to go. NTD's Arian Pazdar has more.
Graffiti on storefronts right here in Midtown Manhattan. They might not look very threatening, but both mayoral candidates say these tags are directly linked to an increase in violent crime and they got to go. Last year, New York City cut funding for graffiti removal, which led to more vandalism. This year in April, the city started the so-called Cleanup Corps, which consists of 10,000 city workers. Part of their job is to clear the city from graffiti, and according to the mayor, they've done a good job so far.
Well, this is amazing. They have hand-swept 50,000 blocks in New York City, removed 600,000 bags of traffic, repainted almost 1,000 properties that had graffiti on them. This is amazing stuff.
Democratic mayoral candidate Eric Adams previously said the city should have never cut funding for graffiti removal. His opponent, Republican Curtis Sliwa, agrees and added that the mayor should lead by example.
I, as mayor, go out there with brush in hand, power sprays, all the equipment that you scrape the graffiti with, and with a crew that's dedicated to me every day, hitting at least one location.
He added that graffiti is often used by gangs to show prominence, and these rivalries can, in the worst case, end in shootings. Arian Pastar, NTD News, New York.
How do you react when you see a uniformed police officer on the street? Do you say hello, or do you feel fearful? We all react differently to situations depending on our environment and experiences. Police officers know all too well that one misunderstanding could lead to a life or death outcome. But for the rest of us, we don't often get to see their perspective. NTD's Kay Rubacek has the story.
This is a pretty special place.
What's the most important asset in today's community?
It's just cops and robbers, right? That's what people think.
You're our future. You're a big part of the community. We want to make sure that you succeed in life.
Why now?
Why not? This is the perfect time.
People don't think about it, but you do need to explain this thing.
It really is the good old-fashioned Good Samaritan ethic.
How are you going to be remembered? Do you live for yourself or you live for others?
You don't surrender, you don't retreat. You have to be an example.
Slow, slow, slow. Good try.
As corny and cliche as it sounds, there's a heartbeat behind this badge.
I think we need more corny and cliche in the world. The NYPD is the largest and one of the oldest police departments in the United States. And New York City streets are known for being New York tough, so the New York Police Department needs to be even tougher.
But to see what goes on behind that tough exterior,
we spoke to NYPD officers, mentors and educators who are proud to wear a badge over their hearts that signals not only their dedication to protection, but to the service of their community.
We know the streets can be dangerous, and there's a huge void. Parents are working busy, so we're here for the kids.
This is a pretty special place.
When I was growing up, there was so many more programs open for kids.
Those moments of these kids actually just asking me for a little bit of guidance. What would I have done if I was 17? Them looking up to me just for a little bit of guidance, I can't ignore the call. This is just a small portion. There's thousands of kids that need that. There's so many.
I always say the most primary part of the community in New York City are our children. So we're not only bringing in or creating relationships with the police department, but a lot of youth are involved in a lot of gun violence. It's heartbreaking when you see a young person, 13 years old, 14 years old, 10 years, being shot and being met with their demise. So we want to give them something to do and giving them a safe space.
It builds trust.
Absolutely, absolutely. Trust, faith, and we definitely are trying to win hearts and minds.
You go through adversity, you overcome it, and you come out on top. So we like to think that our youth and our cops are both made of that blue chip material. As you know, police don't always get, the best media coverage. You want to have programs that show the kids that there's a different side to police. We want them to know that the cops are just like them. They're human. There's a heartbeat behind this badge.
Tune in to Life and Times every week on NTD Television.
An NBA player has chosen not to receive the vaccine. This means he won't be allowed to play because of local vaccine mandates. We hear reactions from fans. Some of them respect his decision and some are disappointed.
Kyrie Irving is a guard for the Brooklyn Nets, and he's not playing because he chose not to be vaccinated. That's because his team has to abide by New York City's vaccine mandates. The Nets had a preseason game at the Barclays Center on Thursday, and fans who attended needed to show proof of vaccination before they could go in. Many of them supported Irving's decision not to get the shot.
His body, his choice. I mean, it's nothing wrong with how he feels. If he don't want to get it, he don't want to get it. But I feel like it's kind of wrong that they're forcing him to get it just so he can play. But, hey, I support Kyrie's decision 100%.
Irving indicated on social media that he knows the financial implications of his decision and its impact on his career, but that he's willing to stand up for the things he believes in. Another fan says it's a personal decision.
I think that this whole situation has become very political. However, it is an individual thing. Each individual has the right to determine what's best for him and his family. So.
The player's decision to not get the vaccine prevents him from playing or practicing in New York City, and now the team is benching him because they don't want him to be a part-time player for away games. This, while another fan says they respect his decision and they hope to see him play soon.
Well, we're really disappointed that Kyrie's not playing. He's such a talented guy to watch on the court, and the fans are really going to miss that. Society's going to miss that. But he has decided to take a stand, and we respect that.
But what's at stake if the guard doesn't play this season? $17 million. That's the amount of pay he'll lose for not playing the games that he would have played in Brooklyn and Madison Square Garden.
New memes are emerging on the internet all the time. It can be hard to keep track of those trends. Now there's one that even politicians are taking part in. People are calling it the red flag meme. Users are posting red flags with quotes that they don't agree with or even see as dangerous. Big name brands and even the New York City Council have joined the trend. The Daily Show also used the meme by mocking Senator Ted Cruz. The senator replied saying that the American flag would be more appropriate, indicating that this quote should be connected with patriotism. People have already evolved the meme by using green flags for quotes they approve. Who knows, maybe the American flag will be next step. Who do you call if you have a bunch of giant pumpkins that need to be smashed? How about some elephants? The Oregon Zoo in Portland held its 23rd annual Squishing Off the Squash yesterday to usher in the Halloween season. With social distancing requirements in place, the zoo wasn't able to hold a public event this year, but said the elephants seemed to have fun anyway. The pumpkins weighed several hundred pounds before being crushed and were donated by 2 members of the Pacific Giant Vegetable Growers Club. And coming up, the U.S. Army Secretary says America's military needs to ask itself some hard questions as China becomes the biggest challenge. And a grassroots organization is calling on U.S. lawmakers to hold the Chinese Communist Party accountable for its forced organ harvesting. We'll hear more from the president of the Solano County chapter when we return.
What does it mean to devote your life to the truth? Does it mean investigating communist subversion here in America? Does it mean exposing the deadly fentanyl crisis in the Midwest? Or spending late nights and covering deep government corruption? Does it mean persevering over 20 years? Even after 4 masked men set one of our printing presses on fire last year. Because at a time when America's traditional values are under attack, It's the responsibility of righteous journalists to uphold truth and tradition.
The U.S. Army Secretary says America's military is at a strategic crossroads. The biggest threat comes from China, and the Chinese and Russian militaries are holding joint drills. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has more.
In a speech this week, the U.S. Army Secretary said America's military must ask itself hard questions and is now at a strategic crossroads. Secretary of the Army Christine Wormuth said the U.S. still faces an array of challenges from Russia, North Korea, and others. But, quote, one pacing challenge stands out above all, China, and we must transform to meet that challenge. Wormuth asks the Army to update their thinking about military conflict with China. It could come to more than just exchanging long-range missiles. She said if the U.S. fails to deter either China or Russia, quote, we could even face attacks here on the United States itself. Wormuth says in the past 2 decades, while the U.S. was busy dealing with terrorists, China and Russia went to school on the American way of war. They modernized their military and built advanced space, cyber, and disinformation capabilities. She says that's why the U.S. Army needs to seriously consider how to face these challenges. A loophole in Beijing's air defense strategy. That's according to the head of Taiwan's China Affairs body. In a business conference on Thursday, the agency's head, Qing Tai-sen, broke the news of a secret visit from the U.S. Air Force to China. He says 2 U.S. fighter jets had flown close enough to China that they could have launched missiles at the country's coastal airfields, but China was totally unaware of it. That's because Chinese aircraft were busy intruding in Taiwan's southwestern airspace. Earlier this month, a record 149 Chinese military jets crossed into Taiwan's air defense zone, just as Beijing commemorated the founding of its communist regime. Chiu says the move was to counter the Malabar exercises starting on Tuesday. Naval forces from the U.S., Britain, Japan, Australia, and others held a joint drill in southeast Taiwan waters to counter China. Chiu says China's military presence near Taiwan has become a warlike situation.
A conservative grassroots organization is calling on U.S. lawmakers to address the Chinese Communist Party's forced organ harvesting atrocities. NTD's Cynthia Kai spoke with the president of its Solano County chapter to hear why he believes the U.S. needs to hold the CCP accountable.
The National Federation of Republican Assemblies passed a resolution on October 9th condemning the Chinese Communist Party's organ harvesting. Norman Reese submitted the resolution. He is calling for an immediate end to the persecution of Falun Gong and forced organ harvesting. Reese shared how he first learned of the issue in 2016 after meeting 2 Falun Dafa practitioners.
And from meeting them, I found out we became friends, and then I found out about Falun Gong. Dafa and Falun Gong relationship and the human harvesting.
Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, is a spiritual practice composed of meditative exercises and based on the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. After the discipline was introduced in China in 1992, the Chinese regime launched a persecution campaign in 1999 to eliminate the practice.
And one of the first things Rachel asked me if I knew a place that they could put a display on for the atrocities going on in China.
Since 1999, millions of adherents have been detained in labor camps, tortured, and killed for their organs for sale, according to the Falun Dafa Information Center.
When I heard about the harvesting of organs against people's will and all, it was repugnant to me. So, and then personally knowing Maggie and Rachel, in a personal way, it really personalized it even more so.
Reese explained that such atrocities are a fundamental violation of human rights.
And the fact that they're not open to investigation and allowing people to, they say one thing, but they say, can we come in and investigate? And the very fact they won't let that happen makes it very suspect.
Reese says raising awareness is important, but not enough. He hopes U.S. Congress members can pass resolutions and laws to hold the CCP accountable.
But it isn't going to solve the problem until people take action in a legal way to say, if you don't do this, this is going to happen. If you don't open up and let us investigate, we're going to cut off make certain sanctions.
He says sanctions may cost the U.S. in trade, but lawmakers need to take a stance if they are to address the CCP's persecution and organ harvesting of religious groups. Cynthia Kai, NTD News, California.
Coming up, one of the world's strictest health pass systems is going into effect in Italy today. It impacts every Italian worker, whether they're in the private or public sector. And an Italian icon is no more. Airline Alitalia made its last flight Thursday after 75 years of service and 6 government bailouts. How did the airline fall? That and more on NTD News. The health pass system for workplaces is going into effect in Italy today. Every worker must show proof of vaccination or a negative virus test within the previous 2 days or recent recovery from the virus in order to go to work. Protesters gathered in Rome to rally against the measure. Let's take a look.
Over 1,000 people on Friday protested in central Rome against Italy's mandatory green pass for workplaces. An American woman living in Italy says she's there to peacefully express her complete disapproval for the measure.
I'm against any type of green pass, any type of certificate, vaccine or whatnot, certificate to work. I'm against that completely. Why? Because I think it goes against our rights, our human rights. It goes against the Italian constitutional rights as well.
The protesters gathered in an ancient arena in the historical district and shouted slogans such as freedom, freedom. Some protest banners and flags say the green pass is only the beginning and freedom. One of the protesters expressed concern about the safety of the vaccines.
They damage our freedom. I want to be the one who decides. I'm 69 years old. I don't know if they tell lies or if the vaccines have been tested. Why do I have to take a risk?
The Italian government approved the rule in September, and it's one of the strictest in the world. The Green Pass system applies to all workers in both the private and public sectors. Workers without the Green Pass will be suspended without pay. And if they try to work anyway, they will face a fine of up to 1,500 euros, or around $1,700. The Green Pass system is in effect until at least the end of the year.
Italy's flagship airline, Alitalia, is touching down for the last time today. Despite billions of dollars in bailout money and flying movie stars, princesses, even popes, the airline is bust. NTD's Faye Corder explains the Italian icon's downfall.
Alitalia, the 75-year-old airline that once symbolized Italy, is dead. In the 1960s, it was Europe's third largest, but more recently, it hasn't made an annual profit in 20 years. The airline made its last flight Thursday. Numerous popes used Alitalia as their go-to airline, including the current one.
Thanks to Alitalia for carrying us up to now.
The Italian government made 6 failed rescue attempts and spent over $11.6 billion to bail it out, all to no avail.
The reason Alitalia went kaput is very simple. Its cost structure was simply not sustainable.
Francesco Gaglietti is the founder of Rome-based political risk consultancy Policy Sonar. He says Alitalia focused too much on the domestic market. Italians frequently vacation in Italy, and tourists want to tick off sites within the country.
And because of that, it suffered lots of competition from companies like Ryanair or EasyJet, and even from high-speed trains, which literally suck the air out of Alitalia.
Italian state railway company Ferrovie dello Stato has seen passengers on the main business route almost quadruple over a decade. There were 1 million in 2008 and 3.6 million by 2018. Right now, 2/3 of people traveling between the major cities of Rome and Milan take the train. Also, analysts say Alitalia didn't adapt to shifts in the industry, which involved the rise of low-cost carriers and consolidation among big ones. The airline is being replaced by far smaller state-owned successor, ITA. ITA will use Alitalia's planes, but only employ around 28% of Alitalia's staff. This has resulted in protests. Faye Quarter, NTD News.
Coming up, we take a look at a charity organization that's finding ways to stop good food from being thrown away. Instead, they use that food to help feed the hungry. And a London exhibition celebrates artwork created with colored pencils. Some of the pieces look so realistic, you may not believe they were done in pencil. Find out more in just a moment here on NTD News.
You worked hard for your money. You invest in stability for your retirement and your family's future, to build and leave them with something greater. The next unprecedented financial crisis, political misstep, or unstable government can depreciate it all away. It was called the gold standard for a reason, the financial preservation of tomorrow. Diversify your assets against inflation, market volatility, and the unknown with real money. Hedge your wealth with the purest form of money, physical gold and silver. Because any currency printed on paper can be manipulated. What's backing up your IRA? Do what you need to do right now to be prepared with the Reagan Gold Group. Visit now, rggusakit.com, or call us at 866-912-1384. Receive up to $2,500 in free silver coins and a free safe with your new precious metals IRA. Call now.
Every year, billions of tons of food are being rejected by retailers and wasted at farms. The food is usually dumped in landfills, creating environmental problems. But a growing number of charities are tackling the supply chain to stop good food from being thrown away and finding ways to get it to the needy. We hear from Fair Share, who say last year they saved 132 million meals from being wasted. NTD's Eddie Aitken brings us this report.
Early every morning, Fair Share volunteers busily unpack groceries. They take unwanted food from retailers and farmers, sending it to charities that help the nation's poorest. Supermarkets reject farm produce if it's strangely shaped or wrongly packaged. The cheapest option is often sending it to landfill.
Now, we have the capacity to take that food from the supermarkets. They don't really want to deal with many others in the sector. They haven't got time. They want to get it out to people as quickly as possible, and we're able to do that. It comes into warehouses like this. It's resorted and then put onto new pallets, as you'll see, and then sent out to those charities in need.
Fair Share says it redistributed 55 tons of food last year. That's 132 million meals. 25 centres in the UK supply over 10,000 charities. Thompson says 2 billion tonnes of food is wasted every year, mostly at farms. Fair Share can make redistributing the food cost-effective for the supplier.
We help them cover the costs through our Surplus of Purpose scheme to make sure that it's cost-effective for them to redistribute that food through us rather than to send it to landfill, to let it go to waste or rot in the ground.
One of the charities Fair Share works with is Brighton Food Bank, run by Mike Jourdain. Since the pandemic started, he has seen more people in need, but less food donations, particularly due to churches not congregating.
We've seen a 38% increase this year post-COVID, so we've got great demand. So we're looking after about 120 people in a week. We're giving them 3 weeks of food, so this will be empty probably by tomorrow.
FareShare has also seen difficulties, rising fuel costs and lack of lorry drivers, so they are trialling electric tricycles. Volunteers can pedal hundreds of kilos of food into congested areas. With the COP26 climate conference round the corner, FareShare hopes the topic of food waste will be on the menu. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
A 20th anniversary exhibition of artwork created using colored pencils opens in London. It's an increasingly popular medium among amateur artists and professionals alike. NTD's Neil Woodrow visited the exhibition.
A society of artists that use coloured pencils in their work are holding their 20th gala anniversary exhibition in London. It includes workshops to help fine-tune your artistic skills. The UK Coloured Pencil Society was formed 20 years ago by artists that shared a passion for the medium of coloured pencils. They now have more than 800 members from around the world.
This is the biggest exhibition we've ever done, so that feels really good as well.
400 pieces of pencil art drawing were entered to be shown in the exhibition this year, 2/3 of which will be displayed.
A lot of pencil artists are entering the competitions where they're up against oil painters and acrylic and watercolour, and they're winning awards, and people can't believe that it was done in pencil, which is just phenomenal, and I think it's that secret medium that's a bit mysterious, even though everybody did it as a child, but actually as a professional piece of work, it's a really mysterious thing, so we're trying to shine a light on what it can actually do, yeah.
Another artist and committee member talks about the method of pencil drawing.
Unlike watercolours and acrylics, you can lay down colours quite quickly. But with our pencil work, we're very limited just to actually the point of the pencil. And as you can see from the study here, it's quite painstaking work, and some people can spend many hours on their art.
All the exhibition artists were invited to attend the preview evening, and awards were presented for their work. Workshops take place each day, giving attendees an opportunity to get some personal guidance with their drawing technique. Beth discovered art during lockdown as something to do to while away the time and de-stress. She came to professional artist and art tutor Jonathan Newey's bird drawing workshop, hoping to pick up some tips on how she could improve.
I think I've found that birds are the thing that I'm drawn to, so that's why I picked this particular workshop. But I hadn't done a bird of prey before. But yeah, for me, it's about having the confidence to just do it and have a go. So I think that's what I'm getting from today, and seeing Jonathan do it, right, off you go, and then just, putting it down on paper and seeing how it comes out.
Jonathan was telling me that building up layers of colour and detail can take time. His A1 full-size pieces can take around 100 hours to complete. Some ranges of coloured pencils include up to 160 different colours. There is a shop at the exhibition where artists can purchase their supplies. Hundreds of pieces of detailed artwork depicting people, animals, botanicals and more line the walls of this gallery space, some of which are for sale. The exhibition is free to visit and is open daily until the end of next week. Neil Woodrow, NTD News, London.
Christmas is many children's favourite time. The UK's most famous toy shop, Hamleys, reveals its top 10 toys for this Christmas. The retailer says this year's selection is designed to get the whole family back together after last year's Christmas was effectively cancelled. NTD's Joanne Robson has the story.
Santa, elves and a grotto full of toys. Toy retailer Hamleys unveils its top 10 toys for Christmas 2021. in an event at its flagship central London store. Hamley's head of buying, Victoria Kay, says this year's Christmas is about getting family and friends back together.
There's a lot of role play involved, there's a lot of imagination involved in the toys that we've picked, and there is also some magical things in there as well, which is what it's all about, isn't it? And it's about trying to bring that magic of Christmas back.
Hamley's top 10 picks include Hasbro Nerf blaster guns and remote-controlled Rally's Warrior 3-in-1 race cars. A magical cauldron is Kay's personal favourite.
It's literally a cauldron which kind of smokes and puffs out all this kind of air and fun and magic, and then lo and behold you get this lovely cute fluffy toy in it, but I don't want to spoil it because it's really fun. But it's the funnest thing that we've seen, yeah.
There are recent media reports of potential toy shortages due to delays at UK ports. Kay says Hamley's hasn't been affected and is well stocked for the festive season.
Christmas doesn't come as a surprise to us at Hamley's. We always know it comes, and it comes every year, and we knew this year was going to be bigger and better than ever before after we'd had last year. We have been planning for Christmas since March onwards, so we have been building our stocks all the way through the year from March.
The top 10 toys for this Christmas also include some traditional toys, like soft toys, an interactive globe, Lego and Playmobil toys. Joanne Robson, NTD News.
The comfy casual trend is booming. Many professionals got used to wearing loungewear from working remotely, and now ties and high heels are out as they update their wardrobes to return to the office. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the story.
Blanca Lorca used to wear high heels and fitted clothes to the office, but the pandemic lockdown transformed her style sense and shopping habits. After months working from her Madrid apartment, she's going for a new look, as she returns to the office 3 days a week.
I look for clothes that will last for some time and won't go out of fashion, and that can be worn at work or to go out and have a drink, that I can wear for everything.
The focus on comfort has spurred a new desire for versatile clothing. Fashion that is appropriate for the office, but relaxed enough for kitchen table teleconferences. The trend also includes men's fashion. Department store El Corte Inglés in Spain said demand for comfortable office wear surged over the summer.
The way men dress has been adapted, and they are adding new clothes that were unthinkable until now. For example, we would never find sweatshirts in a classic office style. However, nowadays, something like this could be worn to go to the office.
Big brands are paying attention, and the trend is global. Retailers such as Zara, Mango, and H&M are featuring smart casual pants, shirts, and dresses on their websites.
We are not using ties, jackets, or suits. They are sectors that are being penalized today. And it seems that the companies that will benefit are those that sell mixed products that are comfortable and casual, and you can also wear them to the office.
But even as demand recovers, retailers continue to grapple with disruptions to global supply chains. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.
Before you go, here's something you should know. Don't forget you can catch all of NTD's programs on television. NTD Business premieres live Mondays through Fridays at 5 p.m. We broadcast to many of your favorite platforms, Apple TV and Roku, for example. We're also rapidly growing on cable, satellite, and over-the-air all across the United States. Just go to ntd.com/TV, type in your zip code, and find all the ways you can watch NTD.